So first, we're going to meet Cirrus and Sapphire, a pair of Mickaboo Budgies, and their person, Susanna. So welcome,
Hi.
Susanna.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'd
It's
like
so
to
nice
introduce, yes.
to see these two. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
We have here two female budgies. In front, it's Sapphire, and behind it's Cirrus. I've had Cirrus only since February, and Sapphire I've had for about two years.
I see. It looks like they're pretty comfortable sharing a cage together.
They are, it's interesting, their behavior always is in flux. And I think both of them are fairly dominant birds.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually when they first fly to the cage, there'll be a little bit of squawking.
I see. So can you tell us a little bit about how old they are? Are these boys or girls? Do we know?
These, they're both girls, and we have no idea about the ages.
Okay.
Cirrus was a surrender from an owner who had had her for 2 years. And when her companion was lost, she was very, very lonely. And this surrender wanted her to find a new flock.
Mm-hmm.
Sapphire was a budgie that flew to a bird feeder down in San Jose, and the owners brought her in, and kept her for about 2 years. Other birds kept flying to that bird feeder as well, and they just couldn't take care of so many.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Somebody must have had an insecure aviary in their neighborhood or something.
Yes, luckily it stopped. But so it's very hard to know what budgie ages are. Generally, you only know when they're very young, and they'll have little stripes on their head. Mm-hmm. Right now, we know they're mature. The cere above their beak is a little bit brown. Mm-hmm. And that also changes, throughout their life. And maybe, I don't know if you can see, they're molting right now.
Oh, I can't see that, but I can imagine you have a lot of little blue feathers in your house then.
They look very scruffy right now.
Oh, it's not apparent from this distance. They look very cute. So can you tell us, are either of these birds at all tame? Are they ones that might be friendly with children or adults, or are they more bird oriented?
So Cirrus is, neither of them are completely tame. Mm-hmm. Sapphire is very used to me, and she'll jump on my arm when my arm is in the cage, moving around bowls and water. Mm-hmm. And Cirrus is a little less forthright, but she's very food motivated. And so I'm going to put my hand in the cage right now, and we'll just see. I don't think they'll want to share. And so
look at that.
But I think Sapphire will fly away once Cirrus comes.
Oh,
so
cool.
they're not, they're not completely friends, but it's that's a human word, and they have a different relationship.
Sure. I think one thing that would be good for us to mention now is that in the wild, budgies live in huge flocks, and they have very dynamic social relationships with a lot of other budgies. So having, some are going to be your best friends, and some are just going to be, nice neighbors, as maybe these two are.
Whoops. So you just saw Sapphire try to nip Cirrus's tail a little bit.
Oh, yes, I believe. Isn't that a little bit of a habit she's got?
Yes, and it's funny. I don't know exactly what it means, but she tends to do that. They both are very good eaters. I'll spray some water on the fennel behind, and we'll see if they start hanging on it. They eat pellets in the morning, and they eat seed at night. Mm-hmm. Sapphire is a little bit, let's see if she will do anything. Sometimes this is one way they take a spritz bath. Mm-hmm. So they're fighting, or not fighting is the wrong word. You can see, yes, you can see that Cirrus has a big chest there. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit of an abnormal air sac.
Oh.
We plan on doing getting an X-ray to rule out any disease. She doesn't have any abnormal behaviors or sounds, and so it could be just the way she is.
So, well, there's an example of the reason why we have the vet bills that we do, that for all of our birds, when we see a medical need, we do seek medical care for the bird. We have relationships with a number of avian vets in the Bay Area. And yeah, sounds like she'll be on her way to see one of them soon. So I see you said that's fennel that they have hanging in the back.
That's hanging fennel. And they really, like to nibble. Again, I don't know how much food it's not like they consume a lot of it, but they like to nibble throughout the day.
Are there other vegetables that they like to play with or eat?
They will eat, a little bit of kale, parsley, broccoli. They like to chew the stems of broccoli. And that's a tip I learned from fellow Mickaboo foster, is that sometimes you have to present the vegetables in a different way for the budgies to play with it. And it's often, they're just sort of experimenting. They use their mouths in a way to communicate and experiment. And so Sapphire, for instance, you'll see she has a really long beak there. It's a little hard to see. And that could indicate that she's had a poor diet in the past. When I first started caring for her, I did get her beak trimmed at the veterinarian twice, about 3 months apart. And it's been about a year now since she's seen a vet, but I think it's longer, and I should probably get her beak trimmed again.
I see.
But her diet is, one thought is that the beaks take around 6 months to grow out. And as her diet improves, she'll regain a normal beak length. And hopefully she'll rub it against that cement perch. And so here's a little bit of their power play going on.
Well, that's really good to see, because we have a couple of audience questions about their interactions with other birds. One is, could they be added to another flock?
Yes. And right now they're missing their cage mate, Maglio, whom I'm also fostering. She just chirped in the background. I'm giving Maglio medicine, so she's in a smaller cage, so she's easier to catch. And when Maglio is in, her personality changes the dynamic of these two. So absolutely, I think these girls would do great in a flock. And I think it would bring out different aspects of their personality. For instance, Cirrus and Maglio share the food bowl, like, cheek to cheek. And but Sapphire will not share the food bowl like that. They eat separately.
Interesting. Another question, are their noise volumes different between male and female budgies? And I'll say that in my experience, no, they are all not particularly loud, but they kind of, they have a more continuous noise all day.
In my experience, we have one male budgie, and he's very loud, and I think it could be his personality. And I think these two girls are more on the quiet side. And so their chirps are very soft. Right before the affair started, Sirius had her head tucked behind her wing in the back, and she was making the sweetest, softest little chirps. And so there's definitely times of day when they're loud and soft, but I think these two particular girls individually, I think they're on the quiet side.
So another question from the audience, could they be trained to step up on a finger? And my thought is probably so.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Sapphire will step up on my finger now, but the thing is, I don't know if she would fly to my finger from across the room. And then Sirius, as I said before, is very food motivated. She's first to the bowl, and she'll even go to the other bowl to make sure there's nothing better in it. And so when you have a bird that's very food motivated, that's a way to reinforce positive behaviors with treats.
Okay. Another audience question of what is the life expectancy for a budgie? And I'll preface that by saying it depends a lot on their health and care. Nutrition and exercise, just like for humans, are really important. But we find at Mickaboo that about from 8 to 15, possibly up to 20 years of age is their lifespan. So knowing that these two girls were a couple of years old maybe and have been with you for a bit now, they still have quite a life ahead of them, presumably.
Yes, I would agree.
Before we move on to our next budgie guests, are there any last things that you'd like to tell us about Cirrus and Sapphire?
I would just like to say that I'm always learning from them. Even though Sapphire does tend to tweak the longest tail of the nearby bird, she's so gentle with us when we put our finger, through the bars. It's like an elephant trunk in a sense. She's just very, very gentle in that sense. So anyway, I'm just delighted to be able to learn from these two. They're very beautiful.
Well, thank you, Susanna, and thank you, Cirrus and Sapphire. It's been lovely meeting you,